Blockpool, and I'm also Deputy Secretary of the British Blockchain Association. So it's great to be here.
Speak up, Brian. Brian, louder.
Louder.
It's definitely on.
Hello, hello, 1, 2, 1, 2.
That's better.
Yeah, cool, okay. Yes, Brian Scudder, Blockpool, British Blockchain Association. Brilliant to be here. I've got an amazing panel. We have Jay Oduma, who's from Polygon 8. Did I get that right?
You got it right.
I've got it right.
Right
Excellent.
enough, anyway.
Right enough. Polygon 8. Jay is a multidisciplinary artist working at the intersection of Web3, Metaverse, VR, AR.
Yeah, all of those.
Which is great. We've got Patrick Gudov, who's come from Czech Republic. He is CEO of Museverse, which is doing some amazing work in basically creating AI sample libraries for musicians and allowing musicians from around the world to basically plug into the metaverse and jam together and create music together and record and so on. So some really interesting work there. And then we've got Paul Sampson, who is doing some also amazing work in licensing. So we've got a really good broad section of people here, I think. So we'll get going. Actually, gentlemen, would you like to sort of describe your businesses and yourselves perhaps a little bit further than I've just done now?
Hello, yeah. I'll go first, as you introduced me first. I've got a few things, but I'll talk about Polygon 8, which is a multidisciplinary, I suppose, creative studio. And we, apart from just create multidisciplinary art, so that's anything from sound, visuals, and also experiential installations. We also help companies bridge that gap between Web 2 and Web 3, helping them through the Web 2.5 journey, as per se. And also consult on a whole load of creative concepts for brands and anyone that really wants to make that journey into the metaverse.
All right. So with Museverse, we have a big ambitions and motivation, and that's really connect the musicians across the planet with virtual reality, also with through internet, that they can make music together, they can collaborate, and we can inspire them that everyone has the same chance. So if they're from small town, from different cities, that we can connect the musicians across the planet for virtual bands. So the concept of virtual bands. And we are having tools for that, and we are building musical instruments that are interactable in the metaverse, so people can create music in the metaverse, and that's our goal and our ambition.
Very good. I'm Paul. I've just realised I'm wearing the same T-shirt as my headshot, but I very rarely wear anything different. I am the founder of Licht. Licht is a micro-licensing music solutions company. So essentially, we work with rights holders, and we identify opportunities for micro-licensing, high revenue opportunities at scale, and we build the technology that then enables rights holders to take advantage of those opportunities. So our first product was a solution for UGC content creators to legally use music on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram and TikTok. There's over 1 million songs and 10,000 labels and publishers signed to Licht for that product. Our next product launches in December, and it's a metaverse background music licensing platform. So it launches in Decentraland in December, but it enables venues, the people that buy land and build venues in the metaverse, to be able to pipe chart music into those venues to make them more engaging and make people stay longer and provide something more akin to the physical world experience when you're visiting a bar or a retail outlet or club.
Great, thank you, Paul. I wanted to kind of set the scene a little bit. Obviously, enter the metaverse. Everyone will have been sort of cudgeled with metaverse technology, I imagine. But I wanted to bring it back a bit to the way in which people are, particularly in the music industry, are accessing the metaverse, and the change that I've perceived, see if you agree with me, moving from the idea of NFTs as the kind of mechanics of music distribution in Web3, moving to what appears to be, even in the last couple of months, a genuine change of language, ditching the whole concept of NFTs, almost disappeared into the background as the piping a little bit, and becoming much more a conversation about the metaverse and Web3, community building, and so on and so forth. So my question to you all really is this just marketing, or has there been given the crypto winter, is this just marketing change of tack, or is it a real thing?
Yeah, I think it's real. The conversations we're having with rights holders suggest it's real. There's a lot of mistrust around NFT and music NFT drops because there was a big sort of cash run at the outset where big artists were just saying, these people will buy anything I release, and they just took the money and ran, and those NFTs have proven to be worthless over time. And so I think those days are gone. I think that at the beginning of any new technology, there's always sort of opacity and bad actors, and I think for the music side, that's probably happened. But rights holders that we speak to are engaging with us around something more meaningful and more, what would you call it, more prolific throughout, more ubiquitous throughout the metaverse, as opposed to just, sort of cash heists and one-off drops. You look at someone like Warner Music, who are investing in, I think they've got upwards of 15 Web3 investments. They invested in us, and we're not a Web3 company, but they've invested in 13 or so Web3 companies. So they're taking it very seriously, and they see the growth of Warner Music Group happening not just because of increase in music revenues from the metaverse, but just them having invested in future technology.
Patrick?
Okay, so we see NFTs as a technology, and we see that the technological aspect of NFTs is very interesting because you are defining the ownership, and you can have on a blockchain, you can see every ownership of item or of object or of song, and so there's the transparency. And so far, like as we do also with Museverse, we are leading now Blockchain Music Alliance, which is a group of about 20 projects right now, and we see what is the blockchain projects are focusing, and the majority of the projects are focusing on distribution of royalties through NFTs, which is actually really interesting, and I think there's a big potential in that. And it's interesting how every company is approaching it a little bit different. That some companies are focusing on sync rights, some for public performance, some for distribution of royalties through like Spotify. And it's interesting to see how everyone is using this technology differently. We are, for example, approaching it in a way that we creating a musical instrument. So as we are in the metaverse talk, our goal is really to how to make music in the metaverse. And so our goal is to create first musical instrument. So you have the tools to create music. So and every instrument is as an NFT. And we see the potential that every sound that is for the musical instrument can be also owned as an NFT. And as you are composing music, you can see that there's with the sample pack libraries, it can get to the point that it can get very similar for the producers, that usually the sample pack brands are by popularity, like the searches. So a lot of producers are getting to the same pattern that are actually using the same sample and they don't even know about that. And I think the NFTs actually can be a way that you can actually own your own signature as a sample, and you can actually trade it if you are like a little bit bored of that. And I think that's a very interesting use case how you can use it.
Hello? Fine. Yeah, so I am actually going to take a completely different turn to all of that. One of the interesting things to look at is what does it mean to have music in the metaverse itself? And the reason I say that is a lot of experiences that people are putting together on a lot of platforms are trying to divorce the virtual from the physical or from the real. And one of the things that I feel that does, and sort of a few people that I know as well feel that does, is it starts creating insular experiences. And the metaverse itself, or metaverses themselves, aren't just virtual spaces. There's also an opportunity to have the virtual laid over the real. And what that does is it allows you to start looking at ways of experiencing music, physical music as well, audio, the sort of things you'd experience in the real world, through the metaverse at the same time. And by doing that, it actually showcases that a lot of the, I suppose, language that we're using to try and describe and ascribe to music in the metaverse, whether that's rights, whether that's copyright laws, so on and so forth, it's trying to use yesterday's legislation for tomorrow's thoughts. And it's sometimes inadequate. And it also means that we're actually lagging behind in terms of the way that we try and conceptualize what's possible. The reality is the metaverse and Web3 is supposed to actually unlock infinite possibilities and new ways of thinking about things. So instead of looking at music from a traditional music point of view, we should be looking at what does the metaverse allow musicians or people that make music to do, and how can they do things that they weren't able to do before.
So, sorry, just jump in. They're both right. They've both got cases here, right? There's absolutely utility in blockchain and NFT for copyright creation in the metaverse. What the music industry has just tried to do, and where they went wrong, was trying to retrofit blockchain over copyright on 60 million lines of fucking dirty data, right? And if you entrench dirty data, all you've done is make it worse. When you're creating new copyright and you allow, for instance, a songwriter, you look at it like apps like Session, Session, right, where they allow you to put your writer's share on the chain and agree it with all the other writers in that moment, and then it's entrenched. That's exciting, but for the first 5 years of music and blockchain panels, I wanted to shoot myself because everyone was just sitting there going, how do we get out this bad information copyright on the chain? And that was the wrong way to look at it. So I'm pleased that these guys are doing what they're doing.
Yeah. And Jay, can you give, from an artist's perspective, an example or some examples of this sort of new methodology for
Well, I think
artists?
there's two ways, and there's a few. In fact, going back to what Paul was saying, even if you look at the way artists are charged, obviously this goes from a Web 2 point of view even to a Web 3 point of view, and look at the, I suppose, the commissions that people take, as well as what they allow artists to earn. And a lot of platforms, so Web 3 platforms, you're looking at 30-40% is being taken off them. So at that point, it also makes it very difficult for the artists in the first place to even think about coming onto the platform. On top of that, there is the difficulty of accessing the market, because a lot of people, especially people that aren't necessarily digitally native, find that most of the PR around any Web3, NFT, crypto currently, or in fact over the last few years, hasn't been that positive. So they're all a bit scared, a bit worried. And then they also feel like there's a barrier to entry. They feel like, oh, is it going to be technically difficult? Do I need to learn to code? I hear that all the time, and I get, and as we all know, there are no-code solutions, there are AI solutions already available. So that journey is actually one of the issues in the first place. Then once you're there, there's now how you monetize it. Is it something you should be monetizing in the first place? Or is it actually that you should be trying to reach as many people as possible? And unless you can navigate those things, you end up with platforms where there's nothing on it that people want. I mean, it's all great having Decentraland and people buying, land there and creating shops and whatever, but if there's no users, it doesn't matter.
Well,
That's why we're putting music in it.
Are there new forms of collaboration emerging from this, given the nature of the technology? And
yeah, I mean, there are. If you look at, I don't know if Roman's here, but one of my colleagues in Mirrorshot, he's got a platform called Wristband, and they are currently allowing people to create their own metaverses and also do live concerts in the metaverse. So actually having that layer on top of what's the current, physical layer that's already there. And they actually did the experience sort of platform that's just gone. And that's actually allowing people to, instead of having to build it yourself, there's platforms like that where someone else can build it for you and then you can just play the gig, basically. I mean, obviously, there's all kinds of things like Fortnite, so on and so forth. That's creating new types of experiences. But then there are also virtual artists that are popping up in the space. And these aren't, and I will warn about that, these aren't the virtual artists that record labels are creating. There are other artists that are sort of developing in the space that might have got big through creating a song that was really big on Minecraft or Roblox. And they've actually started garnering their own following through all these platforms. And they aren't, no one knows who they are. I mean, obviously someone must know who they are, but they're not the traditional form of artist. And those artists are now being able to collaborate with real artists. Obviously, if you look at things like the Gorillaz and so on and so forth, it's kind of Damon Albarn kind of had that idea in the first place. But then you've also got, I suppose, concepts like the Bored Ape, where artists like Snoop Dogg and Eminem are able to use their Bored Apes to actually create collaborations between them and sideswipe sometimes recording contracts that they might have had because Snoop Dogg and Eminem aren't actually appearing in that music video, but they are through their avatars.
Paul, I mean, we were discussing earlier, and I think you've got something to say quite strongly on the idea of artists emerging that aren't on a label that can create their own environments effectively.
Yeah. So I think there's three parts to this, right? There's if you're an artist, or if I'm Drake or I'm Snoop or any artist, as soon as I include my music in my NFT, I'm cutting in the label and the rights holder.
Exactly.
I don't own my music. If I release the music by NFT, I'm creating a business model for the people that own my art, not for me. The opportunity for the big artists in the metaverse is to say, fuck the music, this is a fan zone, and you get to meet with me, and I'm going to create new art, whether that's music or otherwise. In fact, it can't be music because it will be owned by the label and publisher. Yep. But it might be meet and greets, it might be a museum about the artist, it might be behind the scenes footage of the album, of the video drop. And you just go, this is Snoop World, buy an NFT that gives you access to it, and come and meet me here once a week, or come and meet me here once a month, and we'll keep evolving the experience. But any monetization around Snoop or me as an artist that happens in that zone, you slap the artist, the label, and the publisher on the wrist and say that's nothing to do with you. If the label and artist want to create another zone where there's music involved and cut you in, great, let them market it, let them pay for it, let them cut themselves into the deal. Then you've got the independent artist. The independent artist is not signed to a label or a publisher. The independent artist owns all of their copyright and all of their rights. They should be monetizing their music in the metaverse. They should also be creating those artist fan zones, but they can also monetize their own music there. And if you actively engage with your fan base and build up that advocacy and that loyalty, then there's a route to you building an audience and a living out of the metaverse that I don't think was ever there before. You couldn't really engage with your fan base in such an authentic way, or
Touring?
quite as often as you could have before.
Is this not just replacing touring in a digital realm?
No, I would say
But when you tour, you don't do meet and greets, you don't get to chat to the artist, you don't get to see what's going on behind the scenes, you haven't got a venue you can go and tour all the information about what's going on with that artist or what's happened, you know.
Paul, I think that there's two aspects to that. Yes, there is an opportunity to create a deeper connection with the fan.
Yeah.
The point of which, I don't know about you, but when I was dreaming about being able to do things in the metaverse or virtually, was being able to cut down that space between anyone anywhere on the face of the planet. The issue you have, though, is that that creates stratification between layers of people that have access. There's not everybody in, I don't know, areas of Africa has access to the same things and the same internet connection that someone in, I suppose, Europe does. So that's an issue that you have to traverse, and that means that people will still have to talk. It's not going to replace it. It's an additional factor to it. And so what I would say, and what the advice I'd give to anyone would be, don't see something as replacing an old form of something else. It's an additional thing you can do. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities. In fact, we're working on something with the UMG at the moment, which will allow people to have a deeper connection with the artist, but also allow fans to actually participate in that journey as well. And that's the key thing. Go on.
I would like to add something to this. I see that we have to understand that this is completely new industry, and we are here right now, like maybe 90s in the internet. So you're really, really early. Like it's with the metaverse, it's also with the blockchain and with NFTs. So right now, there's an opportunity for entrepreneurs to actually start building this infrastructure. And what I see very strong is the NFT and blockchain actually can really cut the middleman. That's the first really great thing that can happen, because you don't have to have the label. And I think that you can also have an opportunity to invest in the artist. So if you believe in someone that is going to be a superstar and like you really love the music and you want to support him, you also want to have a reward of that. So I think that what is going to create this space is that it is going to create opportunity to invest in the artist like a stock, like a cryptocurrency. And if the artist is going to be big, you're going to also profit from that. And I think this is very powerful, and it's going to change a lot. And one more thing I want to add to this is that I think that this metaverse, Web3 space, I think it's an opportunity for everyone, because right now, like, to be a successful artist, you have to live in a big city. You have to have the right connections in the clubs, with managers, with labels, and so people have to move to big city. But I think the metaverse and Web3 is an opportunity for everyone who has internet, because you can be in the middle of nowhere in a forest or mountains, and you just take a VR headset, or you just plug to online to play in the metaverse, and you can actually play for thousands of people. Not right now. I think the platforms are not ready, but I think if 1 year, 2 years, it's going to be a game changer for
Where
music.
are these mountains of forest you're getting 5G? No one else can find.
Soon, Starlink.
No, I get it. You're right.
But I think just actually sort of add on to what you were saying, that's why I feel like the most important thing for us, the custodians of what will be the metaverse, is to be looking at building that infrastructure. And a lot of people get caught up in ego, and they start thinking a lot further down the road. So they're trying to build the platforms without building the infrastructure first. And then the other thing is actually looking at securing everybody's digital sovereignty in terms of getting that democratization element right first. So getting as many people access to those things in the first place. Because without that, then the sort of utopian idea that you're talking about, which I absolutely love, is not possible, because there's probably a kid somewhere in the Sahara Desert that doesn't have access. And he might be the next biggest artist. He might be the one person that cracks this whole thing and creates that killer app that changes everything. But if he hasn't got access to it, then we're never going to know.
So just thinking about access and the technology, I mean, it's fascinating hearing you all from your own different angles talk about the different possibilities using discrete bits of technology. What's missing? Is there a gap in the technology that we currently have that would make all of this cohesive?
Do you want to answer, Paul? Should I answer? I don't think that the technology is the issue. I think one of the first issues you have is interoperability isn't something a lot of people are focused on. Some people are, but there's a lot of people that are looking at centralized metaverse opportunities rather than decentralized opportunities. And what that does, it makes their situations insular, and they'll look at what can I put in my place, rather than thinking about protocols and APIs and bridges that you can use to actually allow people to take things from one place to another. And that's one of the hindrances.
Is that not just a cost issue?
No, it's an ethos. It's a mindset. You have to actually attempt to build something that, I mean, it's the difference between, I don't know, iOS and Android. Android is open source. So you allow people to add to it and they allow it to grow. Whereas with iOS, it's its own closed system.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm not sure that there's much missing in the technology. I think in 2008, my friend showed me the iPhone, and he said, "Look at all these apps." And I opened an app called Beer, and if you move the phone, it poured a pint of beer seemingly out of your phone, and we were fucking gobsmacked, right? We were. I was like, Jesus, I need me one of them, right? We are at the beer pouring stage of apps. In 2008, no one was sat there going, what about an app that had all the world's music for $9.99? Or an app that could read your heartbeat and save your life and contact emergency services if your heartbeat slowed down? A lot of the application of what's happening in the metaverse right now is the beer pouring stage, right? And it's going to take some time for that to evolve. The good news is that, look, the music industry tends not to adopt innovation very quickly, right? In terms of, historically, they've only ever been slightly ahead of the Amish. Mm-hmm. So the opportunity is for the builders. It's for the people out there who can say, we can build brilliant experiences. We just need your artists. We just need your music. We just need your buy-in, your participation, and your collaboration. Because the music industry won't solve this themselves.
No, definitely not.
And so I think it needs more buy-in from rights holders. It needs the currency piece to settle down a bit before. So, for instance, I think creators, like we did a lot with influencers, right? And the core business of Licht is about enabling content creators. they're all very nervous about being accused of shilling another exchange or another currency, right? And they won't go anywhere near it. And if you can't get influencers involved, you're going to struggle to get adoption at any scale. So I think there's a few things that need to happen.
From my perspective, I agree with you, and I will want to add the technical aspect of it. Because I think there needs to happen is the technical infrastructure. And I think one of the crucial thing is definitely latency. So if people want to make music across the planet, there needs to be a solution for real-time interaction. So I think the latency is critical for this. And I think the internet is improving with 5G and other technologies. And definitely also the blockchain infrastructure. I think we are still very early. I think we are seeing like a lot of really exciting projects and interesting that are solving like how to bring the value to musicians in a matter of royalties, the NFTs, how to use it. I think if we give it 2 years, I think all of these components are gonna be in the place, and I think we will be ready for the scaling for this new opportunity for musicians. And so that's from the technical aspect.
Just thinking about.
I was going to elaborate on that actually, with an analogy that I like to use. It's the American Wild West analogy. I think where we are right now is there are a lot of people who understand that there needs to be train tracks built. But instead of building the train tracks and the railroads, they're trying to build the hotels and all the commerce at the end. Whereas we're at the stage where we need to build the railroad, and then some people are going to catch the train down to where we are. They're going to start panning for gold. At that point, we can then build hotels, because then there'll be people to stay in the hotels. And once those people start staying in the hotels and they've got a bit of gold, they can spend some cash. We can then build bars, saloons, and shops. But because of ego, previous industry, the way things have been done before, we're already at the stage where we're thinking about building the shops. And people are trying to do that, but there aren't enough people building railroads. And that's what we need to do. So go back to your infrastructure point of view. That's literally what needs to be done. I think also in terms of from an artist point of view as well, there still needs to be a bit of a, I suppose, zeitgeist shift in the way we see artists and what we've done in the past, and not allowing that to, I suppose, curtail or even make us decide on what should happen in the future when it comes to artists, even down to what an artist actually is, what art really is, and also what they create.
At this point, does anyone have any questions?
Only two. Bloody hell. We were that good? Or they didn't understand anything we said?
Jay, this is for you.
It's for me personally?
Yes, for you personally.
Wow. I feel attacked. I'm joking.
No,
I
you
don't
had
really.
mentioned a few times about people that didn't have accessibility.
Yep.
Is that something at Polygon 8 that you are currently trying to tackle?
Yes.
As a company?
So, well, as an artist duo, yes, we are. Specifically, we've been lobbying the UK government. I've been sitting on a lot of panels. I don't know if Balby is here. He's probably not here, but we've been having so he's out there. Yeah, so he's been inviting me to a whole load of things where MPs ask us about, the evidence sessions that we give. And one of the things that I always bring up is looking at digital sovereignty and also access. First of all in the UK, but I've also been doing that with the UN as well. But even if you look at the UK and the government, the current infrastructure projects that have been put to try and get 5G everywhere, there are still areas in the UK where they have no access to the internet at all. And so now if we are spinning up projects like even being able to use your bus pass, having to have that as an internet or cloud-enabled piece of software, it's not going to work in those areas. And those people are literally going to be cut off to access services that are now moving forward. And so that is something that we're not just passionate about, but has to be the focus.
Other questions? If you can just say your name and who you're working with, or what are you doing?
Thanks, guys. Really great panel. My name's Kerry. I work at MasterCard. I'm just wondering, what are the best platforms that exist today that aspiring independent artists can use to actually make money?
Who wants to answer that? Who wants to answer that?
I mean, the best platforms in the metaverse.
Exactly. To make
For-
money in what way?
Brian, give it.
Yeah, you go for it.
Not necessarily in the metaverse, but could be sort of
Anywhere.
anywhere.
Till Web3.
Okay, cool.
Web 2,
Yeah,
Web
fine.
3.
Okay, fine. Go for it.
So I will do the metaverse part. I think at this moment we are very early in the metaverse. So I think the metaverse still needs some time. There are platforms that are already functioning pretty well, which we are currently building in Somnium Space Metaverse, which I'm a big believer, even though there is not too much traffic still. But I think if you see the whole, if we are talking about decentralized metaverses, I don't think at this point there is any of the metaverse where artists can really effectively monetize their art and performance. But I think it's going to change soon. And I think it's going to change when the markets are going to be more favorable on cryptocurrency to bring the value and the users. We saw the hype of the metaverse last year, and I think we will see it again. And so that's going to be where the use case and the money is going to come back. That's the metaverse part. You wanna add?
I mean, yeah, outside the metaverse, you look at things like SoundCloud and Patreon,
Yeah.
where artists can actually directly engage financially with their fan base, which is one step shy of being able to directly engage with them financially and virtually in the metaverse, which is where I was talking about owning and engaging with your fan base in your own zone or your own fan zone in the metaverse. I think that's, for me, I'd like to see many more artists doing that now. But for the moment, if you're an independent or independent label signed artist, Patreon and SoundCloud, I think are places to go.
I'd also put platforms like YouTube, which I know might not be the greatest, but in terms of actual ability to earn money, and if that's specifically what you're saying, then being able to create your own content and monetize that content in a way where you create a larger community, that's one of the best platforms.
Have you guys?
Not yet. I mean, there are some that are coming out, but as Patrick is going to tell you,
I didn't want to steal your mic, of course.
Go for it. It's your
Yeah,
mic anyway.
yeah.
Is it working? Oh, it's working now. Here we go.
Oh,
We're back. We're back.
We're back. So as we are doing the Blockchain Music Alliance, I can see interesting projects that are actually working pretty effectively, which one of them is Another Blog, which is actually pretty interesting. They did NFT drop of the weekend, and I know that it was pretty successful. And their model is currently on the Web3, only one that is currently functioning pretty good. And they are actually distributing the splits of royalties from Spotify and other like streaming channels. And so that one I wanted to point out.
Yes, I've got another one. It's called Moonwalk, and it's a no-code Web3 platform that allows anyone, whether you're an artist or a label or even a group of artists, a community, you can actually use that to monetize all your artwork, whether that's music. It also helps you build Spotify playlists, so on and so forth. And then obviously, but you can also create your own brand wallet, which means that all your fans get your own wallet, and then you can obviously siphon all the finance through that.
Have you guys come across fan circles? No. So it's an app. It's Web 2. It allows for NFTs and so on and so forth. But that's for smaller labels, for smaller artists, possibly not. But you can white label it basically. It's really originally designed for super fans.
There's Disciple Media is not dissimilar to that, actually, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a few. Other questions?
Any more? We're not fall off. Jesus Christ, that would be crazy.
Hi, Richard Martinez, Supermex International.
Hi,
To
Richard.
kind of go with your analogy of the Old West, the temptation, I think, would be strong for myself and maybe a bunch of others to direct those tracks to my locations, my hotels. Because that actually did happen in the Old West. Politicians and people with money directed the tracks and where they were built. So I have a fear of that taking place and what you're talking about. My question is, and it kind of goes to what some of the things you already addressed, but are there such things as, some collectives, some organizations that help artists, and that's where my primary concern lies, is artists with their ability to create and control their own content, you know, monetizing it going forward, and not just for the money, but to control what they've created. Are there groups, are there large amounts of creators, artists that are acting in concert so that they can protect each other over time, not just individually, because individually they can get eaten alive.
Are you talking about protecting their interests or the artist's interests?
I'm talking
Because
about artists
there
controlling
are
and protecting
both.
their own. Right.
There are a few. They are few and far between, and they are artist-led and also small communities that are being built. There isn't like an official charter or anything like that, even though I've tried to lobby the UN for that for many times. However, there are also collectives of organizations that are coming together to try and control their and get things in their interest, basically. So you have record labels, for example. I'm not going to name who they are, but there are a few that are now collaborating with each other to try and start creating centralized metaverses that will control how artists can monetize, and also, as Paul was saying, try and bring old copyright laws into the metaverse.
But look, the train tracks analogy takes us back to, we still can't legally pipe music into a venue in the metaverse, right? There's no global right for performance, all of that. It's so dull, you don't need to know about it. But those are the things we're trying to fix now so that we can get the very basic opportunity taken care of, which is background music in the physical world does 9 figures a year for the music industry, right? And we can build X amount of replications of the physical world online and in the metaverse and monetize it in the same way. If we can't get music monetized and played as background in the very basic retail outlets and bars and clubs in the metaverse, because let's face it, the metaverse sounds shit. It sounds awful. It's just full of music and elevator music everywhere you go. And we're wondering why people won't come back.
I love it.
Right? You've got to get the foundations right. You've got to get the basic. Everywhere you walk, you go into Pret right now or into a club and there'll be music playing. Right? And that's not feasible right now in the metaverse. That's the solution we're building, but that's the train tracks of music in the metaverse. And then you start building the big shiny objects and doing more of the virtual concerts.
Sorry, there was a gentleman.
Yeah. Okay. No, I want to just say that, like, to understand the transition from the Web 2 and even like, from the traditional music industry to Web 3, like, you have to understand that these organizations are like dinosaurs of music industry. So they really have to first get it, like, what is metaverse? So I think they are trying to understand. But like from my perspective, and we already had some discussion, they are actually starting exploring this. Like, for example, SACEM, the performance right organization in France, the biggest one, they are starting like see like how they can do the metaverse thing. And so I think there is an effort, and they understand that it needs to be solved. And just we are still early because the metaverses are still not fully functioning.
The problem with the SACEM doing it is that it's local. It's a local territory. It's got no fucking right to do it globally. So listen, there's a guy that works for me who used to work at PRS, which is our version of SACEM,
Sure,
right?
of course, I know.
And he said to me, Paul, I knew I had to leave PRS because when they were looking at new revenue streams, they said to me, go and find out if we can charge the rickshaws in central London. And he physically had to go out and try and catch people on tuk-tuks. Like, the PROs are not fit for purpose, and if there is one that is, then credit to them. But none of them have the mandate from the rights holders to do anything globally.
Yeah, but not only that, though, they don't have the manpower. Yeah. So that's the other issue is that, I mean, if you look at MCPS, PRS, AKS, all those kind of guys, they're struggling right now to deal with TV rights, YouTube rights, all those kind of, I suppose, syndications. And so anything that's created Web 2-wise, they're trying to get their head around. Yeah. They haven't even started. They haven't even started thinking about the concept of, oh wow, someone's going to make a club in a metaverse space, and then I'm going to now have to think about collecting royalties from not the organization that made the metaverse space, but the person running that club. That's crazy.
Yeah. And actually, from my perspective, it's like, I'm from basically from production music background, and so we work with Production Music Association, and how it works so far with licensing for TVs, radios, and so on. They are applying essentially like recordings of all the what is happening in the TVs, and they have a database of music, and they are like checking like automatically what tracks have been played. And I think they just need to understand the PROs that they need to collect from Metaverse. And I think the private like associations they will apply it, and they will like claim the royalties because they also have their business model. And I can see it like from organizations we are working with.
Everyone in the metaverse is going to be encrypted and behind a VPN.
Exactly.
Like,
And
it's all just going to be black box money. I honestly don't think the PROs are fit for purpose for this. But I like to be proven wrong.
Yeah.
That was what.
Yeah,
last,
so
wasn't
last
there?
question from Jeff.
Thank you guys for the panel. Jay, that's a very good analogy with the train tracks. I was going to use that.
Don't worry, just give me my royalties.
Hi, my name is Oscar. So I work in NFT ticketing, and for revenue streams for artists who are trying to start performing in the metaverse, do you have any like ways of? So a lot of metaverse projects, I see that they are like free to enter. So is there any revenue streams for an artist who is trying to enter?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, what we're building, what we're launching in December, is about the venues themselves having to pay to be able to broadcast music to anyone, even if there's no one there. If you're going to be playing music in your establishment, is that what you're talking about?
No, I think he's talking about the like if you did a live concert in the
Well,
metaverse,
there's still a
what he's saying
performance,
is not about what he's not talking about actually royalties from the music, but actually like gate receipts.
Right.
Is that what you meant?
Yep.
Okay.
So there are platforms where that's available. I think I'll point back to things like Wristband, who are doing that, creating, I suppose, what you'd call a physical, digital representation of a physical venue. So it's like similar to having a concert hall or a concert experience in the metaverse. But then, at the moment, right now, the issue about charging people is that you kind of need to educate and get people to understand it as a concept first. So if you start charging people to attend a metaverse concert, you're putting a barrier to them actually attending that first. You've got to make it the norm, get people to understand it, and then you can start charging, because then you'll get different levels of opportunities and different levels of concert.
But then people were doing it on Zoom throughout the pandemic and charging for that. And so, but didn't you say you worked at NFT ticketing? Yeah. So you're doing it. Like, yeah, okay. So, like,
He just wanted us to talk about
yeah,
that.
he wants us to talk about NFT ticketing. Get up here, Oscar. I would look at companies like Drift, DRIIFT, who have done a lot in virtual concerts as well, and they're selling tickets and doing millions and millions in revenue. When I say virtual concerts, I'm talking about remote concerts,
yeah.
but they're now looking at the metaverse space to analogously move the model over.
Essentially, like for example, Somnium Space, that they are building like a platform, like that. There's the payment system. I think the metaverse needs to, by themselves, build the gateways for everything to monetize it and do the transactions. I think it's a responsibility of the metaverses, and I know in fact that they are building that. And it's a Decentraland as well. It's a sandbox, and but it's gonna take some time. But I think that's only a solution. Or we are actually also approaching this with. Technology of AI with SingularityNet, like that we have like a snapshot camera that can count how many people is there, and like you can actually like count that you have a stream of audio. So if they pay, they get the audio. So I think there are some ways around it, but it's a little bit tricky at this point. But it's going to be solved in the future.
But don't you think that the responsibility isn't just on the independent platforms that are creating their metaverse experiences, but also on payment platforms and payment gateways to create interoperable systems that they could just apply? Because that's how, if you look at PayPal, how PayPal enabled a whole lot of people to create commerce.
Brings us back to the
Web 2.
railway tracks, doesn't it?
It's just about someone thinking, oh well, payment gateways are a problem, right? Let's stop creating payment gateways. But the issue you have is that if you want that to be linked to fiat currency, then you've got to have a supporting bank in the real world, and that's where the real issues start happening.
Yeah.
So I'd like to wrap it up here. I think that's been brilliant. But one last thing. In your dreams, each of you could careful. If
You don't want to see behind the eyes.
If each of you could just come up with a beautiful desired state for perhaps the artist, for a producer, studio, and for a license holder, what would be the perfect metaverse state to be in?
Perfect state for an artist is to be able to share your art with the world, support your, I suppose, needs in terms of being able to create more art, and also have an opportunity to, I suppose, create more opportunities for other artists as well.
Patrick?
The dream that I have is the platform where you can find the right mates that create same music, same type of music. You can connect them, you can appear in the same room and first try, okay, do we understand each other musically? And if yes, wow, this is great. And we can create a virtual band, and you can start recording tracks. And then if you record tracks, you can release it as an NFT, or you can play in the metaverse, in the metaverse clubs, and you would have a database of metaverse clubs, and you would see the availability of like, okay, like there's this club, and so let's apply, and then you can perform, and then you can perform for people. And what I love in this is that if you're a musician, I was musician touring, and it's super exhausting, and I mean I love it, but like it's very physically demanding. But I think if artists have an option to actually play from home as well, then it's going to be very powerful, because you can take, for example, I believe in VR. So I think if you take VR headset, and so you suddenly you are at home, and suddenly with the VR you see like maybe thousands of people, and you can load your musical instrument like to the metaverse, and you can actually play the live experience there. I think it's going to be very powerful, and if you can make money out of it as well, I think this is going to be game changer.
Paul?
I like that museverse you just described. I'd like to see labels invest on behalf of artists and create real artist-led universes that you can. I don't know if anyone did the Ariana Grande Fortnite Drift tour, but it was magical, and it was a hell of a lot of investment. 33 million people attended. If they can do more of that without the platforms themselves, and just invest in sort of, just if you could fully immerse yourself in an artist and all their creativity, that I think is utopia. And secondly, I would just like the industry to adopt innovation sooner and quicker. and I'm in this sadistic world of going, well, I'll go and build the tech that enables you to earn that revenue, and then going and keep thinking that they're going to be receptive on day one. And they typically take a bit longer. So I would say let's have them adopt a bit earlier.
Well, hopefully some members of the audience might be in a position to make some of this stuff real. So, but no, thank you very much, Jay.
Thank you.
Patrick,
Thank
Paul.
you.
That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all for
Thank you
coming.
all.
Thanks, guys. We shall reconvene here in about 20 minutes.